Martin Gramatica joining us on the program. Brother, I am as nervous as I'm going to be. I'm sure you were feeling the same way when Argentina was in that World Cup final. Probably a lot more nervous than I was, but there's just something different about these matches where it's a one-off and you just don't know what's going to happen.
And that's the beauty about good afternoon. Thanks for
Good
having
to
me.
see you,
First
brother.
of all, great to
Yes.
see you.
Sorry.
Hey,
Good to see you,
listen,
brother.
I sense the tension there, but no, and that's the beauty about these games, where you don't have a tomorrow, and that's why I always say the Super Bowl for American sports is like the World Cup, because the World Cup, if you wake up on the wrong side of the bed, you've got to wait 4 years now to even have a chance, and the chance of coming back. The same with like a Super Bowl. There's no series. It's one game, and these type of games are. But that's why everybody loves about sports, and that's the great thing about sports is like you don't have a second chance. You got to go out and do everything you can to win that game that day.
Yeah, that's why it's so great about what Argentina was able to do. They able to come back and to be able to win. Um, and now I was just mentioning like Emi Martinez. They're talking about him leaving Aston Villa and going to Manchester United. I was like, I'll take that guy, and especially with the penalty kicks. Could you imagine if there was some semblance of that how like they get in each other's heads like before you kick the field goal? Can you imagine like if their guys like went up there and they were starting to like scuff the did that ever happen? Let me ask that question. Has that ever happened? Like what's the biggest case of hey somebody trying to mess with you when you're trying to kick a field goal?
Well, all the defensive linemen always talk. The thing is,
Right.
you're so locked in. There's a lot of noise, from the fans, so you don't really see what they're saying. And if you're focused on the defensive lineman, then you're off your game. So
Right.
you've got to be focused. That's why I said kicking in the pandemic with quiet stadiums had to have been the hardest thing to do, because now you can actually hear what the opponent's saying.
Right.
And,
Right.
when you have that ambient noise of the stadium, 99% of the time you don't. You just see lips moving if you get distracted and see somebody talking. But a lot of times it would be after the kick. If you miss a kick, usually a lot of times it was the corners, because they're coming right off the edge
Mm-hmm.
and they'll say something or bump you and say something. And that's when obviously I would get pissed, because I'm like, I already missed a kick, man. You don't have to pile on. And then if I made one, I had to go find them and try to say something to them back. But yeah, that would be the closest thing.
I love it. Yeah, it's funny you said that about the pandemic because I remember being in the press box when there was like 50 people in the stands for hockey games and sitting where we are in the third level, you could hear what the guys were saying on the ice, and it was weird for us. I can't imagine how weird it was for the players. Since the last time we spoke, we've got another Gramatica going to USF.
We
Man, what
do.
take us through that decision and how that works? Because listen, we know that what Alex Golesh was able to do last year with how Nico was able to get didn't have to make all the kicks, didn't have to take all the kicks, but what went into that decision? And is there any worry about like a development? Because again, there's only one guy that can kick. How's that discussion go with Coach Golesh? Take us through that if you can, because it's great news for sure.
No, we're super excited. Well, he had other offers. He had an offer to UNC in Texas. We took a visit to Texas, and when your gut tells you this isn't my home, it doesn't matter if it's Texas, if it's any. Anytime I see Coach Gold, I said, look, I love the fact that you're 20 minutes from the house, but I love what you're doing. Whether it's 10,000 miles away, we still would
Right.
consider USF for what they're doing and what they're building. It's all about building young men for the future. Because at the end of the day, the majority of these kids won't play professional. So
Right.
this will mold them for their future. And that's what Coach Gold and his staff, he's got a great staff. So with G, our Nico's going to be a sophomore, and G has one more year of high school. So it'll be where more than likely my youngest will red shirt, and then they have 1 year where they overlap. But there's also a chance to kick off. Maybe
Yeah.
they'll find a way to get them hopefully both on the field. But for us as a family, we couldn't be happier that he decided. Because at the end of the day, we're going to let him decide, even though
Mhm.
we're trying to guide him in the pros and cons of both. Like what he thought was a negative about USF was to have the red shirt and to have
Right.
to maybe overlap with his brother, because he wants to play as a competitor. You want to play, but at the end of the day, it's you have a long way. His goal is to play at the next level. So you still 1 year is not a big deal. Plus, it gives him a chance to get stronger, get more mature. So we love that he decided with USF, because keeping him close to home for us was very important. because of our family dynamic. We're always at the games. They still have a sister too that they can come watch and support. So it's, I mean, we couldn't be more excited.
Brother, every time I see a highlight of your daughter, dude, she's making Odell Beckham catches. My God, man, like she's like a human highlight reel. Is there anything that she can't do?
Well, I don't post it when she drops it, so no, I'm just
She's
no.
amazing, man. It's
She,
wild.
She takes after mom, thank God. No, the thing is, when you have two older brothers, you
Mm-hmm.
get roughed up by them. So now she's actually tough, because of
Mm-hmm.
for the young, the being the third sibling, and then she loves to compete and loves to go out, and she does it in soccer and football. So she does flag football and soccer, and I mean, I love the fact that I don't have to like open the door and tell my kids to get outside and go play.
Right.
They want to do it. She's out doing her stuff. When they said we don't practice, she's doing it on her own. So that's where my wife and I are super proud of them for their work ethic. Because at the end of the day, whether they make it or not, there's so much that could happen. Where you also have to create your luck, but also be lucky at times.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, their work ethic is what we're more proud of. And Nico does a great job of being that role model as the older brother. And then G follows, and then Emmy follows them. So we're happy that they work hard and they're trying to achieve something. So it's not something that we're just working out and have no goals. They have their goals, and hopefully we're trying to do everything possible to guide them and help them to their goals. But at the end of the day, their work ethic is what's doing it, not anything that we're doing.
Yeah, it's so ironic that I have you and then I have Doug Wechter joining us at 1 o'clock today. And Doug's son Caden is one of the top junior pitchers in the country, throwing in the mid to upper 90s, doing a great job at Jesuit over there. And just like you guys have what you guys say about being a parent as a former professional athlete with your kids, it's so similar. It's, you want to give them every resource to succeed, but it's on them. It's on them. Like the work ethic they put into it, what their goals are, and you can't want it for them. And I think, and I'm sure you've seen this, Martin, because me coaching youth baseball for 10 years before I ever got into radio, you see some scary situations, man, where it's almost like the parent, they want it more than the kid, and the kid just looks miserable, and you're like,
Right.
what an awful existence. I mean, I never wanted, when I was coaching baseball, to make a 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old feel like this was a job. This has got to be fun, man. You're going to be working when you get older, man. Worry about taxes and all that stuff, and
You're right.
relationship problems. Like, you got to deal with that when you get older. Don't worry about that now. This is supposed to be fun.
And that,
Speaking of, go ahead.
and you know what? But that's sort of the problem is when a lot of times the parents think that they can push their kids to be successful,
Right.
and you can't, because if your kid doesn't want it, I don't care how much you push them, how much you want it for them, it's not going to happen. And I see that a lot with soccer too. I coach soccer, and a lot of times these leagues promise these kids all this, and at the end, I mean, with soccer, we got to be realistic. A lot of the scholarships go to European and South American kids, not our
Yeah.
American kids. So when they preach that and they shove that down people's faces, saying, "Oh, this is the only league you got to be in this league to get a scholarship." That's not true, and we see it, with sports. But that's the thing. When I guess we can always show them the way, but at the end of the day,
Mhm.
they have to get up and do it. If they don't do it, I don't care how talented they are. How many talented kids do you see that never make it? They just lose the passion, and a lot of times it's coaches too that never
Yeah.
played or have no idea how to coach and take that passion away from the kids because they make it about themselves and not the kids. So yeah, there's so much to it, but yeah, no, we're like I said, we're gonna show them the way, and at the end of the day, they're the ones getting up at 4:30 in the morning to work out. We don't. I don't get it. I do my own workout. They do their own.
But I want to, before I want to talk about one of your teammates. I want to ask you about soccer in this country. What is it going to take for us to be like? How long do you think it takes? Is it going to take? Because I think about some of these guys, and I watch some of these stories, like Eze, the guy from Crystal Palace, who was in the Arsenal system when he was 7 years old, and you see these guys get into these academies when they're 7, 8, 9, 10. You already see Cristiano's son and Wayne Rooney's son, and all these different. Like, what is it going to take for soccer in this country to be able to get to that level? And how long do you think it'll take? Because people ask me and I go, I don't know if it'll be our lifetime, but I think it's going to take 20, 30, 40, 50 years of, maybe the soccer, and it may go kind of in the face of what we're talking about, but they're going to have to focus on soccer at a very early age to be able to catch up, because you have these academies, you have these guys that all they know is Arsenal, Manchester United,
Right.
Barcelona, right? And then you see Lamine Yamal, who's 17 years old, and he's one of the best wingers on the planet, but that doesn't happen, Martin, if he's not in the Barcelona system doing his thing. What is it going to take for our country? We've already seen it, but outside of like our best players going to play overseas, right? It's great to see Christian Pulisic play for AC Milan, and Tyler Adams playing for all these. I think he plays for Bournemouth now, and it's great that they're playing in the top 5 leagues over in Europe. That's a great. But how domestically, how long is it going to take? What is it going to take for us to be able to consider ourselves a superpower?
Well, I think when the league stopped lying to the kids and saying, our league, you got to pay this much to play on this team, because right now, the inner city kid, the kid that actually, the ballers, can't afford to play soccer. Because if
Right.
you play in one of these top leagues, you're going to be paying for field space, you're going to pay for uniforms, and it's very expensive to play at a club level. So when clubs stop making it about the money and making it about truly developing kids, because you look at every club, they talk about we develop this, develop that. All they do is try to get the top league and then try to recruit the best players in the area. So they're basically making regional national teams or regional teams. They're not
Right.
developing anybody, and that's what's sad, because at the academies in Europe and South America, their purpose is to develop players, because now they can sell them for a lot of money. So it is about the money, but if you don't develop the player, that player's not worth anything. Here, they're taking the parents' money, and it doesn't matter if you develop that player or not. You're still taking that player's money year after year. And then when they
Right.
get to 17, 18 years old and like, well, there's no scholarship, you just spent all this money on your kids' youth. They didn't enjoy it because they don't enjoy a lot of these leagues. There's leagues that you're traveling all over the country for one game, maybe 2 games over and back, spending all this money. And when you get to these nationals and you get to these tournaments, they pair you with teams that are equally as good or bad from other states. So you say, "Oh, I'm playing Texas. I'm playing." Yeah, but you're not playing the best team in Texas. You're not playing,
Right.
FC Dallas. You're not playing
Mm-hmm.
Inter Miami. You're playing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I think
Yeah.
when these clubs stop lying to their families and just say, "Look, we're either going to develop kids and hope that they get better." Maybe give them a right. Once you sign with a club, you've got to sign with that club until they sell you.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
way that club has a vested interest in developing that kid. Because right now, if they develop 1 or 2 players, they don't care, because they're still making that money every month when you pay your fees.
Yeah, it's a great point. I didn't even think about that aspect of it, of like, they're just focused on making money for tournaments, and they're making money for their club. And, if the guy, you're just going to,
Well,
if
the
you don't,
directors, the
yeah,
directors.
yeah, director. And then if you don't like it, they just go somebody else, and they go, all right, well, we'll just get somebody else. And you're just a number rather than
Right.
a real person. The other day I was over at One Buck, one of your former teammates, Simeon Rice, going into the Buccaneers Ring of Honor, should be in the Hall of Fame, or at least in contention, a lot closer than he has been. But I mean, what was your first impression when you heard about it? And I mean, this is a guy he's no shortage of personality with Big Sim, that's for sure.
No, I mean, to me, it was well overdue. I mean, and not to say that the guys that are already in don't deserve it, but I think
Mm-hmm.
Simeon is one of those guys that was a game changer for us. I mean, we had a great defense. Obviously, when you have Derek Brooks, Lynch, Sapp, you had a great defense. But when Simeon came in, it just took us to another level. It elevated us to another level. And then just how good of a guy he was. A funny guy, charismatic. Obviously, got the crowd all fired up all the time. But just a competitor, and again, one of the greatest guys you'll meet. He's such a good person, and I'm so happy for him, because I feel like he waited way too long, in my opinion. But I'm so happy for him.
He mentioned that there was a little bit of a contentious relationship with Warren Sapp. And I know it's tough because you're not in like the D-line meetings and stuff like that. But I mean, Warren is a guy that, and again, I said this before you hopped on, like Warren is a guy that, you may have a certain opinion about him. Warren's always been great to me. He's always been great to my family. I love Warren. Every time I see him, never a dull moment. But like Warren was pushing Sim's buttons, right? What does that do for a team when you have a guy? Because listen, everybody's not a choir boy, everybody's
Right.
not perfect, everybody's not an angel. But what was it about Warren, even if it was with Sim or maybe another player, that just that kind of brought the best out of everybody, knowing that like you couldn't rest on your laurels because Warren was going to make sure that you brought your A game every single day.
And that's the thing too with Warren. I never had he always had my back. I mean, as he protected the kicker more than anybody. So like, again, I don't have any. But I think when you see Hall of Famers like Warren, like Derek,
Mhm.
obviously Rondé now, Lynch, work as hard as they did in practice, you couldn't take a practice off. And I remember, and I always bring up the pursuit drill that we did with Coach Dungy. These guys were Hall of Famers flying to an angle to take angles without a ball carrier, we're not tackling anybody, but they're going full speed. And a couple of times I remember when some of the rookies jogged or didn't go full speed, you're watching it on film, they're not having it, and that's
Mhm.
the thing. That's why we were so good, because that defense did not let anybody relax. It made our offense better because you're playing against the best defense in football, but also they competed within each other to be the best. And nobody wanted to be that weak link that, oh, I'm going to quit on this play or I'm not going to run on this play. I mean, it was fun to watch how competitive practices were, and that's because these guys gave 110% every single practice.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I mean, Simeon said the other day that he thinks that the Buccaneers defense in '02 was the second best of all time behind the '85 Bears. And this is a guy from, Chicago area. And,
Yeah.
I just, it really is. And I think sometimes living in the Tampa Bay area, and I've lived here now half my life, I think sometimes you get a little bit, it was great. And then when you kind of put it in a historical, do you ever think about that, Martine? Like when you take a step back and you look at that defense, it's one thing to say like you had great players, you had Hall of Famers, but I think what's even more important is like what I just said about Warren, about what you said in drills like that is as much as like the highlight. We remember the Rondé pick to close down the vet. We remember what happened in the Super Bowl. We know that these guys made the Hall of Fame, but that stuff I think is what makes everybody great. It's the stuff in practice. It's the holding each other accountable. It's, everything's not going to be easy. Like what were some of those characteristics from just being there every day that you just, maybe you didn't know at the time, but what is greatness? When people say, oh, that was a great defense, what would you say outside of the obvious that you just knew looking around, like this is a generational defense. This isn't one of the best just defenses in the league right now. This is one of the best defenses of all time.
Yeah, I think it's what we mentioned earlier, the practice.
Yeah.
Every single guy, and not just the 11 that you saw on TV or the starters or the Hall of Famers, because everybody, we're all going to talk about Brooks, Sapp,
Yeah.
Lynch, that
Mhm.
backbone. But then you had, Greg Spires, who was a phenomenal player. You have Chuck Darby that came in and did some great stuff. Linebackers, that came in and filled in gaps too. So that's what it was. Every single player, whether you were the number one player as far as like future Hall of Famer or
Mhm.
the rookie that just got drafted, that had to fit into that defense. Can you imagine coming in as a rookie, and then all of a sudden like I gotta work as hard as these guys. I gotta come out to practice, and that elevates everybody. So I think that's what made our defense so good, is because nobody wanted to be the guy that looked over and said, "Oh, I'm being lazy," or "I'm quitting on this team," or "I'm quitting on my teammates." And the accountability and the love that we had for each other, whether you had arguments or this or that, you didn't want to be the guy. And me as a kicker, I felt a lot of pressure with that too, because I didn't want to let my teammates down. As hard as they're working, I'm sitting on the sideline not doing much, and all of a sudden my kick is what's going to decide a game or not. That's a lot of pressure when you have a team as close and as hard working. Now, if you're a team that loses every game and guys don't care, then okay, you miss a kick here and there, it's not a big deal. For me, it was a huge deal to miss a kick, because I'm letting all these guys down that work their butts off and it all started, with the Coach Dungy
Mhm.
building that for us, and then Gruden taking it to another level as well. So it was just a combine where everything just happened to work out perfectly for us to win that Super Bowl.
Martine, I know they talk about it when you go on with Mike Calta. Mike, such a great show, and Dolan says it here. Martine needs to be in the Ring of Honor. What do you? I know it's one of those things. Like, what are you supposed to say when people say that to you? But like, do you ever think about that? Because I say it all the time too. Ian and I were talking about it on Monday when I had him on the show of like you being in the Buccaneers Ring of Honor. What would that mean to you if you got that call?
No, I mean, I'm not going to lie and say it wouldn't matter. I mean, I would love it. I mean, obviously, to be able to be in the stadium that I feel is my home now,
Yeah.
like once a Buck, always a Buck, and now doing the Spanish radio for the team, being at every game, that would be the biggest honor. 100%, but I'm not expecting it. Don't think it'll happen, because
Mhm.
obviously being a kicker is a little different than a guy that plays every down.
Right.
And if it happens, I'll be the happiest guy in the world. And if it doesn't, I'm still okay, because I got to play with these guys. Can you imagine, like, how many guys can say, I got to play with all these Hall of Famers. I had one of them mention me in his Hall of Fame speech. When Derrick Brooks mentioned my name in the Hall of Fame speech, it was like me going into the Hall of Fame. That was good enough right there, you know. So for him to, and that's for me more valuable than anything, for my teammates to respect and talk about like that after we've retired. That was just one of the greatest honors when Derrick just mentioned me in a Hall of Fame speech. I couldn't believe it, you know. So, but that's the type of team we had. So it would be amazing, but you know, I don't think it'll happen. There's too many good players, especially now. You got to look at that second Super Bowl though.
I
That
know.
that
We got to
that
get
group.
you in before Brady, brother.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. You know, there's too many good players on that team that'll start jumping on. I hope not. The only chance I have is if they don't start retiring. Some of the old
That's
guys
right.
keep playing for a few years.
Yeah, so I hope Levante and Mike Evans play 25 years, so we have to give you a chance. But I'm with Mike. I'm with our good buddy Mike Calta. I'm with him. I think you should. And if I have to pick it outside of Ray J, I'll definitely do that. To make sure
Thank
we
you.
can get you in. Before I let you go, let me know everything going on with the business. I know we spoke about it last time, and I know you said in the next couple months that you're really taking it to the next level. So just let everybody know what you got going on as far as the imaging goes.
Yeah, so we're very excited. Our first office is going to open in the Villages. We're hoping it'll be mid-July to end of July. We've already have our building permit. The builders are in there, you know,
Nice.
getting everything 100 miles an hour. I have a opportunity where I can scan people in Tampa. So anybody that's interested in the Tampa Bay area, I have a partner that we're going to be working with till we open our own, because we're opening up our own.
What is that, Martin? Because I know a lot of people know the word imaging, but they don't necessarily know what that entails. So what kind of people would go to you? What does it tell you? Because I think, nowadays everybody, especially I think everybody's, at least here in the Tampa area and in Florida, a lot more health conscious. They want to make sure that it's a preventative thing, right? Rather than if it's too late.
Absolutely, yeah. So everything we do is preventative. So what I always tell my friends and family, I said, you want to come get a scan, and you want to get a scan prior to ever having a symptom, because
Mhm.
we've been taught our whole lives, okay, I don't feel good, I'm going to go see my doctor.
Right.
It's rare to say, let me just go see if there's something going on before I feel anything. So that's what we're doing. And we do a full body scan that goes from the top of the shoulder, base to the pelvis, where we look for everything. We start with the heart, and we see if there's any calcification of the arteries of the heart, if any blockages. And then with the rest of the body, we look at if there's any abnormalities, if there's any cancer, hernias, hiatal hernias, anything that's not normal from the top of the shoulders, base of the pelvis. Our CT scanner can detect it. And now I'm going on 5 years doing this. Love what I'm doing, because I've had about 6 to 7 friends that, and a few of them would not be here today if it wasn't for the scanner. It's unbelievable the things that we can detect with patients that are feeling great. They come in, it's like, I feel great. As a matter of fact, my first week doing this, I saw the fittest 65-year-old man I've ever seen. This guy was a triathlete, cycled 25 miles a day. I said, I want to look like him when I'm 65. And he had a blockage so severe that don't even go to your doctor. Go straight to the emergency room. No
Wow.
symptoms. No symptoms. So yeah, so we start scanning 35-year-olds and older. So anybody in that range, if they're interested in doing a preventative scan, let me know, because we'll take care of you guys.
Yeah, I got to get with you, buddy. I just turned 40 last week, so I definitely got to get in there and make sure that the old ticker's good. And I want to be playing softball for longer than Mike Evans is playing football. You know what I mean?
Hey,
That's
we have a
my
virtual
my thing.
colonoscopy. You be ready for that colonoscopy? We have a virtual
Oh,
colonoscopy.
here we
Well,
go, buddy. 40
hey,
years old. There we go.
much less invasive. Listen, the older we get, the more stuff we got to get done. But no, we have a virtual colonoscopy that's much less invasive. So I recommend that too for anybody that needs to get one of those.
The one and only. How can they reach you, Martin?
So clearviewimaging.com is the website. If not, just at Martin Gramatica 7 on Instagram, send me a message. I post a lot on the company, but just go to our website, send us a message, or they can just give us a call.
Yeah, clearviewimaging.com, mgrammatica7. Go check him out. Martin, always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you so much. If you can spare a prayer for your fellow Argentine, Alejandro Garnacho, that he can score a goal today for me, because I'm already sweating because I'm nervous about this game already. I appreciate your time, my brother. Give my love to the entire family. Send my congrats to G and your daughter. I'm just waiting for another freaking video of her doing some incredible things. Thank you, partner. We'll talk soon.
All right, man. Good talking to you. Have a great day. Good luck to your
Yes.
team.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate it. The one